Good evening. Welcome to the City of Murfreesboro Planning Commission. It's February the 5th. First item on the agenda is call the meeting to order. We'll call the meeting to order, and we do have a quorum tonight. Chairman Lamb is under the weather, so we'll wish him a speedy recovery. First item on the agenda tonight is the public hearing, zoning application 2014-401 for approximately 35.36 acres to be rezoned from RS15 to CH and approximately 60.04 acres from RS15 to RM16 along Salem Highway. Ms. Cherie Akers, on behalf of the applicant, Ms. Myrtle Bell, and the Bell Real Estate Partnership, LP. Ms. Green.
Thank you, Chairman Young. Our first and only public hearing this evening is to consider a zoning change request for approximately 90 acres located north of Highway 99 or New Salem Highway. You can see the property is shaded in two colors on the map before you. There's an area that is identified in purple, and there's an area identified in orange. This property is broken down into two parts, and they are to zone the front portion of this property, which is approximately 750 feet deep from its current RS15 zone to CH. RS15 stands for Single Family Residential District, and the proposed change is to zone it to CH, which is Commercial Highway District. The remainder of the property, which is identified in orange on the map before you, is of course also zoned RS15, but the proposed change is to zone that property to RM16, and that's residential multifamily. The property as it currently exists is zoned single-family residential purposes, and it was zoned RS15 when it was annexed several years ago. There was no companion zoning change request during the annexation. Therefore, it came to the city with the default or interim zone of RS15. Currently, the application consists of two tracts of property. You can see there's a smaller rectangle, and that's about 3.8 acres. And that property has a single-family residence and some agricultural structures located on it. The other tract includes approximately 91 acres of undeveloped land that is currently being used for agricultural purposes. The property to the north is zoned PRD, Planned Residential District, and it is proposed to be developed with single-family residential homes on detached lots. The property to the contiguous with this property to the west, and you can see it labeled as RM16, is Multifamily Residential District. And RM16 allows the development of property into single-family dwellings as well as into multifamily dwellings with a density of 16 dwelling units per acre. The property that is contiguous with this property zoned RM16 is developed as an apartment complex. Also, just north of that RM16 district property, you can see an area labeled as RZ, and that's Zero Lot Line Residential District, which is currently developed with the Zero Lot Line homes. If you look to the opposite side, or the east side of the property, there, it's zoned, the contiguous properties are zoned CF, and that's Commercial Fringe District, OG, General Office District Residential, and then a smaller portion RM16. And then to the north, you see the RZ as well, which is the Zero Lot Line Residential District. Directly across the street, or directly across the highway, Highway 99, property is zoned PUD, and that's part of the a planned development called Boxwood Planned Development, which is a proposed mixed-use zoning district. The property that's directly across the street is actually the Boxwood Plantation home, and several years ago there was a request to remove that home from the planned development, so it's now zoned for single-family purposes. In your materials, you were given a couple charts, or of course the map. You're given a chart that details the uses that are permitted in the proposed zoning districts and the proposed CH and RS15 districts. You're also given a chart on the bulk requirements, and that's available for your reference if you have any questions about the types of uses that can be located in on this property if it's rezoned as they've requested. Also, there's a concept plan that's been submitted by Ms. Akers, who's representing the applicant. I'm going to invite Ms. Akers to the lectern at this moment to let her introduce the project herself and provide you more details about the specific request. If you have any questions, of course, I'll be glad to answer them, either before or after the public hearing, but this time we'll hear from Ms. Akers.
Thank you. Good evening, Cherie Akers with Huddleston Steel. First of all, we also have with us members of the Bell Real Estate Trust family members. We have Tracy Kulowski and Lori Bell representing the family. This property has been in their family for over 60 years. Her grandfather purchased it. And also, it's not clear in the application perhaps, Mr. John Floyd is also in partnership in developing this property, who you are all familiar with. Margaret Ann has outlined the adjacent uses. I just want to emphasize that the CH that we're requesting for the depth of 750 feet would be very consistent with the adjacent commercial uses along Highway 99, such as the Publix, the Walgreens, and there's a gas station as well. And then the request for the RM16 for the remaining property is also consistent with adjacent land uses and apartment complexes that are also designated as RM16, and also directly to the north, as Margaret mentioned, the St. Andrews Place, which is also being developed by Mr. John Floyd today. And then there's also apartments to the east. So we believe this is very consistent with the development that's in the area, and we would respectfully request that we get approval for the rezoning. And if you have any questions, we're all here to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Ms. Akers, we may call you back up later, so any questions at this time? Or are we ready to open the public hearing? Okay. We'll open the public hearing in a minute. If you're not familiar with how our public hearings go, you'll be invited to come and to the lectern. Please identify yourself, address this body, ask questions. At the end of the public hearing, we will answer your specific questions. Staff will write those down and answer those specific questions. With that, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone like to speak for or against this, please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Ed Davis. I live at 3336 Berryside Drive in the Salem Cove subdivision, directly across the street from Scales Elementary. And we're not here to stand in the way of progress. I graduated from MTSU in 1974, and Murfreesboro has come a long way, and the Planning Commission is to be commended for what you've been able to do with the codes. I'm impressed with what I've seen because I was gone for 25 years in Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Louis. Our concern in our neighborhood is Mershon Drive, and if you want to put that map back up on the screen, please. Can you do that? Mershon Drive, our concern is based on what goes into RS-15 or what have you, could develop a huge amount of traffic. And our subdivision is a small little subdivision, and we're concerned about traffic. We're also concerned about property value, and I would assume that you guys and ladies will protect us as far as property values go with what goes in there. But I just wanted to express that concern. I have spoken to Ms. Akers. She's been very courteous and kind to me, giving me some additional information. So just wanted to express our concerns. Thank you.
Mr. Davis, we'll address that at the end of the...
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak for or against this? Mr. Vaughn, come up, please, sir.
My name's Butch Vaughn. We live at 3346 Berryside Drive. The map that was up there, our concern is Berryside Drive is, our neighborhood is just a very quaint little subdivision off of St. Andrews. And it's a lot of older people, and again, it's very quiet. And the road coming into our subdivision, I guess I'd just like to request that if you move one block over closer to Scales, I'm not sure what that street's name, but it's already a street there, why you couldn't let that be the egress or the street coming out of that subdivision instead of coming into our subdivision. That street's already there. There's not one coming into ours. And if you went through that subdivision right there, you know, it would avoid all this traffic flow that's going to come through our neighborhood. And it's going to disrupt the reason we all move there. It's because of it's quiet, it's away, there's no traffic through there, and it's off St. Andrews. And it just seems to me, if you move the road, getting out of that new subdivision, over one block, there wouldn't be any need to run it through our subdivision. And it's just my request that you consider that if you move it over there to avoid coming through our subdivision and leave ours as it is.
Mr.
Thank
Vaughn,
you.
what's your address? I'm trying to pinpoint your house on this.
3346 Bearside Drive.
Berryside. Okay. Yeah, I don't see it. No. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Anyone else like to speak? Anyone at all? For or against? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Okay. Ms. Ely, you want to address Mr. Davis or Mr. Adelott and Mr. Vaughn's concerns?
Let me have a chance to say it. She may want to
All right.
follow it up. We do not yet have a development plan for the property. However, today your testimony is very appropriate because we're listening very closely to that. The subdivision that you live in with Berryside and Meerschaum Drive that stubs out into this property, it's obvious that that's a very dense zero lot line subdivision. My belief is, and I think the practice of the Planning Commission is, we don't want to see that to be a primary access to this property. That would be wrong. Part of our challenge will be is a way to see that street terminate appropriately. Right now it stubs into the property line. It's my belief that we can find a balance that that at the very most impact will be that it will stub into a T so that it doesn't make it a through street and doesn't make it a primary connector. When we have a development plan, we will keep in mind what you're saying, and we will endeavor to lay out something that will keep it from being a primary access, because it's pretty easy to see that we don't need to be putting a lot of traffic through a subdivision that has that number of driveways that close together. I think Mr. Floyd's listening, and he'll take that in mind, as will Ms. Akers, when they bring back a development plan for the property. And we'll share the plans with you if you'll keep watching. If and when they come, you can take a look at the plans before they're approved by this body.
Mr. Adelott, brief them on what site plan review is.
All right. It may be site plan review or it may be a subdivision plat review in this case. Before any development takes place, if it involves a new street construction or if it involves a development of more than 1 acre or more than 5,000 square feet of floor area, it will have to come back to the Planning Commission for a public review by the Planning Commission. Before any developer develops property, he has to turn in a site plan that shows how he's going to lay out the development, how he's going to build the parking lots, how he's going to have landscape, how he's going to place his building, how he's going to get his utilities. Any kind of subdivision which will involve public infrastructure like sewer lines or water lines or public streets requires subdivision plat approval. They're about the same thing, except one involves public infrastructure, the other involves private. Either way, they'll have to come back through the review process. If it has to go before the Planning Commission, it will be included on an agenda just like this item. It will not be a public hearing that will invite you to speak to the Planning Commission, but you'll have a chance to review it before the meeting, and staff will have an opportunity to explain it to you and see if we can accommodate a reasonable request.
That was really the two questions that we had. Mr. Davis and Mr. Vaughn both expressed concern over the streets leading to and from this proposed property. I can assure both of you all, and I've known Mr. Vaughn pretty much all my life, that it will be looked at and considered, and you have input with Ms. Akers. You can go see her at her office. Mr. Floyd will take concerns on how these streets work, but it's important that we don't run traffic through your streets, but the soup's not made yet, so there's a process for you to help make that soup. Are there any other questions that we missed in this? Mr. Gilly?
I was going to say, Chairman, if there are no questions, I'd move for approval.
Second.
Okay, have a motion for approval. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes. All right. Our next item is new business.
Yes, sir. Mr. Young, I have two items of new business. The first, I want to talk to you about a master plan amendment for the Mcknight Park. I have two illustrations, actually an illustration and a schedule that I'd like to pass out to you. Mr. Laney Goodwin with our Parks and Recreation Department, he's the department director, is here as well. The Mcknight Park is located on Memorial Boulevard south of DeJarnette. I think we're all familiar with it. It has the Sportscom and the Starplex ball fields. The Mcknight Park also has some land that extends southward all the way to the Walmart site. On this illustration that you see, that area is colored yellow. What the Recreation Department has endeavored to do is to prepare an updated master plan to identify how to construct improvements for the park, but also identifies some land that is probably, now that we've seen the airport increase in size with the adoption of its master plan, now that we've seen some significant development on Memorial that's adjacent to it, i.e. the Walmart that's under construction today, we see a portion of the property that is no longer really as fit for the purpose for recreation as once it was. The Recreation Commission looked at this master plan today, and they actually adopted it, moving it forward through the process, and they have moved to declare the area that's colored yellow as surplus property. What we want to do is to more formalize the master plan process like we did with the airport a little over a year ago. In order to do that, the Planning Commission would need to conduct a public hearing. The master plan is more than just the surplus property, of course. It has the additional parking areas, how it's going to restructure to make the park work better and to fulfill its purpose even better than it does today. But part of the surplus property, of course, would require a conversion of the property, what they call a 6F conversion. Because there was federal funding involved, we can't simply just sell the property and use the money in our general fund. It would have to be used, whatever come out of it, to buy new or replacement recreation land to replace what we have lost. The thing is that property is no longer as situated as ideally as once it was. And we believe that there is better opportunities in the community to serve the need that that's trying to fill. Is there any discussion? After the discussion, I want to offer some recommendations in terms of the master plan.
So the thought process would be that at some point this surplus land would be sold?
Yes, sir.
And I guess it would be sold to an adjacent property owner? Because how else are they going to access this property?
The exact process has not yet been determined, but when the city sells surplus property, we want it to be on a competitive basis. We want it to be fair to anybody that's interested. We want it to leave the city in a better place. We don't want to simply leave it and then have a landlocked parcel that nobody can use. So it would be my expectation that some of the, I guess, best positioned bidders, if you will, would be adjacent property owners. What you don't see on this map is at the very south end of that property, there is a connection to a public street that the Walmart is building.
Oh, okay.
And it's a very narrow opportunity. But it would not have frontage directly on Memorial. So it could probably function without being part of those parcels, but by being part of those parcels, it would have more depth, which would make it probably a more valuable property. Being sandwiched like it is between the airport, the Walmart, and other commercial land, it just is not as attractive for the recreation purposes it used to have.
Mr. Aylott, the little bitty thin line about 2/3 of the way up from the yellow map, is that the driveway or access you're talking about?
There is no, sir. You're talking about between the blue and the red?
Red.
I'm sorry, the blue and the yellow. My
yeah.
color. That access, there's an access drive.
No, not that one. I'm talking
Okay.
about going up off the top of the map.
Oh, you're talking about back towards Memorial up here?
Yes.
That is an appendage that's actually part of this land that on this illustration they failed to color on the revised maps that we hope to have for public hearings. It will show that as yellow as part of that property. It is an appendage of the city-owned land that's about 50-foot wide or 60-foot wide that goes up to Memorial Boulevard.
Would that be included in
Yes,
this?
it would be.
Okay. So there is access to Memorial Boulevard.
It is, but I would warn that it's not particularly attractive access because it complicates with the left turns that are being constructed for Walmart.
Looking into the future, this is going to be part of the track in front of this that goes to Walmart eventually, probably.
I would look to the future and think that would probably be the best position for it.
It also would, well, that'd give access to it. So it's not landlocked like it looks like.
That's correct.
Okay.
We're going to prepare a better exhibit for the Planning Commission meeting. This is one that was prepared just before the Recreation Commission. We'll have one that focuses more in on that property for you as well.
What's our task tonight? Set a public hearing date?
Yes, sir. We need to schedule a public hearing date. This is not like a rezoning. As we may recollect about a year ago, some planning director dropped the ball on an advertisement. He doesn't want to do that again. So I want to keep in mind that this requires a 30-day notice for our public hearing. In moving this forward, I'm recommending to you, unless you have objections, that we would schedule it for March 19th. Now, that would be a day meeting. If the Planning Commission feels we could reschedule that for a night meeting, or we could move it to a different date, which would be possibly in April, but that would be the first opportunity we have, and I have discussed this with the City Manager's office, and he supports this timeline.
Okay. So a motion would be in order to set a public hearing for March the 19th.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend that we set a public hearing for March
19th. All right, I have a motion,
Second.
and I have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes. Public hearing,
And
March
that's not
19th.
and that's not changing it to a night meeting. That's leaving it as a day meeting. We moved it to the meeting into this room if it's a day meeting. I'm fine with it being a day, but I'm just
trying to
wondering.
be a day given the subject matter, but I do think we probably need to be in this room as opposed to
Okay,
upstairs.
it'd be a day meeting.
I don't
it'd be in
think
this
there's
room.
going to be a whole lot of opposition to it.
Well, whether or not there's opposition, I think of it more as public participation.
Well, that's a better term. Absolutely.
All right, I have a second staff report then. We have a new staff member, Ms. Katie Klein, has joined the engineering staff as a project engineer. Ms. Klein is sitting in the back row. She'll stand, please, and wave. She waved there. Katie comes to us. She is a Tennessee professional engineer. She is a graduate of Tennessee Tech. She has had engineering experience in Laverne, Tennessee, and Columbia, Tennessee. She resides here in Murfreesboro. And I will tell you, we're very excited to have her on board. We have a lot of plans to look at, and we expect that she'll be helping Mr. Huddleston and his team to review the plans, help us with stormwater management, helping to build our city into the great place that we call Murfreesboro.
Welcome, Katie. Glad to have you on board.
And that's all my staff reports.
So that's all the staff reports and other business. So the next item on our agenda is adjournment. Any objections? We are adjourned.